We're going to start off today with a little look at where you've come from, exactly what the last however many years has created in terms of English preparation for you. Now, this final stretch into senior English can be pretty intimidating, and a lot of students I've worked with in the past come to me with the concern that they feel like they're not as prepared as they should be, or perhaps that they feel like their peers or friends around them are far more prepared than they are, and that's a concern for them. Now, because English is a compulsory subject in Queensland, you guys actually have far more preparation for this subject than you might have for other senior subjects that you enjoy more or feel more confident in. Because of this compulsory subject, you've actually completed prep to year 10 worth of English classes, so that's 10, 11 years. An entire practice year of assessments, that is, all of the assignments that you completed in year 11 will be the same assessment types that you complete in year 12. You've read dozens of books, analysed hundreds of poems, given countless speeches, written hundreds of stories, and read, analysed, and written literally millions of words. Now, all of those little skills, all of those grammar lessons, all of the times you've done spelling tests and vocabulary quizzes, all of the times your teachers have sat you down with a book and made you analyse different parts from it, all of those have been pushing you towards this final stretch, this last year of English. All of those times you've practiced those most basic skills have been about preparing you for this year. So when you're feeling that feeling of not feeling prepared or feeling stressed or overwhelmed, remember that you actually have a lot of work behind you that is going to make this year easy or easier or simpler for you. Now, this might not help all the time, but it is definitely something to be keeping in mind as you're studying. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, that's great, Maddie, that's really wonderful. It's a bit of a romantic notion, but it's well meant. But you don't actually care about where you've come from. You're more interested in where you're going, what this year is going to look like. And we are going to have a little look at the basic roadmap of senior English, but I wanted to take a moment to talk really briefly about your mindset and how important mental health is as a priority in your senior year of school, not just for English. Your senior year, year 12, it's stressful, it's tiring, it's just plain hard, and there's really no point in trying to sugarcoat that. In fact, it's not entirely possible to sugarcoat that fact. And so it is really important that you guys be thinking about how to prioritize mental health and keeping your brain in a good place throughout the year. Now, the science, the psychology says that good, healthy mental health, a healthy brain, will actually reflect itself in your academics, in the numbers you get in assessments, in the grades you receive for your exams. So as you're planning out your year, as you're thinking about your study schedule, about how you're thinking about how much time you'd like to devote to school, make sure you're also thinking about how you're going to devote time and energy into looking after your mental health and your brain. It's really, really important. All right. Now let's look at the numbers, the roadmaps for 3 and 4. Across the next 12 months, you're going to be engaging in 4 different assessments. Your first, IA1, is the essay for the public audience. Your second, your persuasive oral. Your third, your creative response to a written text. And finally, you have your EA, which is your external assessment, your analytical essay. Now, something nice about English, which differs from science and maths-based subjects, is that the weighting across all 4 of these pieces of assessment is equal. So it's 25% of your final grade is linked to each of those pieces of assessment. Now, that lineup is what is in your syllabus, but your school might not be doing them in that particular order. Obviously, all of you will be embarking on your external exam in November of this year, but for the rest of them, your school can give those to you in any order that they like. So you're not necessarily stuck to that set of, to that order rather, throughout the year. So that is where you're going this year. Now, when it comes to English, because it is unlike maths and sciences that have black and white, right or wrong answers, it can be a little bit hard to figure out how you might approach studying for English, since there is no set textbook that's going to give you the answers to all of the questions you are asked. So I wanted to give you guys a few key resources you can use to study English throughout the year that's going to help you direct your study in a really productive manner. The first is one I mentioned earlier, which is 8R Notes Plus. And yes, it is a very shameless plug, but I don't feel bad about doing it because the resources really are that good. In year 11, far before I ever worked for this company, I used a text guide for A Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, which is a novella I was studying in literature. And it was so incredibly helpful in allowing me to direct my study. It had annotated example essays, it had practice questions, it had quote banks, it had character and theme analysis, it had a really synthesized plot that was so helpful in my understanding of a rather complex and deep text. So having resources like that can be invaluable. If you're a visual learner, if you like to see connections in a text set out really clearly in front of you, or you would like to be planning different types of assessments in a visual way, then I want to encourage you to perhaps have a look into some mind maps. And you can find plenty of free websites online that allow you to make them. Of course, you can draw them by hand as well. The QCEE syllabus for Senior English is free to view online, so if you haven't ever looked at that before, then I really encourage you to do so. It allows you to get a really good idea of the standards they have set in terms of the English different types of assessments. They have example assessments, high marked assessments from the past, as well as practice exams as you're preparing for your external as well. So definitely check that out. The most recent syllabus is the 2019 syllabus. Now, that might feel a little bit old, but it's the current one that we are using. So if you're searching around for something more recent, it's the 2019 one that you're looking for. Throughout the term, as you are engaging in class discussions around English, I really encourage you guys to be creating self-directed notes. That includes notes on things you're analyzing in class, conversations you're having with your peers and your teachers. It just allows you to have all of that information in one place as you're preparing for your assessment later in the term. And then finally, if you're looking for a bit more of a passive way to be thinking about study, then Instagram pages, study Instagram pages can be great. Just something that pops up in your feed every now and then. And we at 8R Notes have one that you can be following as well. That's 8R Notes AUS. It includes English-based study tips, but also broader study tips for different subjects and study in general as well. So make sure you're engaging in some of those resources for English study. So as I said before, English is not a subject of absolutes. There are no rights and wrongs. You can argue anything as correct and true if you have enough evidence and well-based argument to back yourself up. And so you can't study it in the same way you might be able to study other subjects. This means that my golden rule for studying English is to actively participate in it, to be working on and building up your basic core English skills as much as possible. That means engaging in class, having conversations with your peers, interacting with the text actively, annotating them, highlighting them, getting started reading them as soon as possible. And it also means to be working on English outside of the set content you're learning at school. So that might mean that you're reading more broadly as well. That's one of the best ways to improve your creativity, your vocabulary, your grammar as well. Try and be reading a broad range of genres. It just means that you are understanding how all different kinds of authors use all different kinds of techniques to provoke emotional responses in their readers, because essentially that's what you were being asked to do in each one of your assessments, to provoke some sort of response, whether it's emotional or active, in your reader or audience. So be reading as broadly as you can. That is a great way. If you would like to be working on a bit more of an active skill, then writing is also a great way to be doing it. You can be writing within the specific type of content that you are learning about. So perhaps writing practice paragraphs for your analytical pieces, or writing practice hooks for your persuasive essays. If you're working on a creative task, then there are thousands of creative writing prompts online that you can be engaging with, and that's an excellent way to be working actively on improving your English, improving your creativity as well. So reading and writing are two incredibly easy ways to be improving your overall English capabilities. Now, the more actively you participate, the better you will get at English. It's a proven rule, I promise. All right, we're going to talk first about your persuasive speech. We're going to get into the different types of assessments, and I'm sure that this is what you guys are keen to be getting into. We're going to start off with a little bit of a warm-up activity for your persuasive. Now, if you had to convince someone that geese, the bird geese, were more dangerous than crocodiles, which they absolutely are, how would you convince them? How would you go about convincing them that this is the truth? What specific points might you use to convince them of that? What sort of persuasive approach might you take? How would you specifically convince them that this is the case? I'm going to set for us another little bit of a timer. If you're feeling brave, if you're feeling bold, perhaps you could write some of your responses down in the live Q&A chat below so that your peers can benefit from them. Again, I'm going to set us about 4 minutes this time. We're going to get our brains thinking nice and quickly in the persuasive space, and I'll let you know when you have about a minute left so we can get stuck into the next little bit of our content. Okay, about a minute left. Get your ideas down. If you've got lots of dot points on your page, maybe start thinking about how you would write these into sentence form, how they would actually look within the context of a real persuasive speech that you would be happy to present in front of people. Challenge yourself. Step out of the holiday comfort zone. Get in the English.